Good morning, you beautiful souls. Welcome to Wake Up. With me, Sonia Poulton. I'm a journalist, I'm a broadcaster, I'm lots of things. Oh, yes, indeed, I am. My nickname is Juggler, actually. But that's an aside. How are you today? It's Monday, the 17th of November, 2025. It is exactly 9 GMT. And I am so delighted to be here with you. And last night I had a really humbling moment. I was reading some of your beautiful comments that you leave on my various videos. And I just suddenly thought, how blooming fortunate am I to have this platform? And thank you for keep returning. It means the absolute world to me. Hello to you all, to Cadders and Armand and Catherine and Cavan and Soul Sound and Mia. And who else? And DJ Marcuson and Vape King. Good morning to you, Poppet, and Health Freedom UK, and Colin Guthrie, and Steffi, and Kay, and Jack's Dreaming, and on and on. How are you all? And Lisa, how are you all? I hope you are absolutely sparkling and well. Welcome to the show that knows you are awesome. And don't you forget it. Do I need to come around there and remind you? You're awesome, right? Remember that, please. And what to say? Well, this is episode 163. Thank you again. Thank you for everything. What is on today's show? We will be joined by one of our favourites around here, journalist and geopolitical analyst Warren Thornton, who will be talking to us about the MAGA split, about the Sydney Sweeney controversy, about censorship, about Labour anarchy, you name it. Warren will be talking about it. We'll also be joined by the rather wonderful Dr. NAOMI Murphy and the equally wonderful former professional footballer Andy Woodward. They're launching a new campaign this week for International Men's Day. It's titled Inside the Boys Club, and it's about men who were abused as youngsters speaking out. And honestly, not a moment too soon. This is a wonderful campaign, and I'm really looking forward to discussing it with them. We'll also be joined by Ben Hawkes. Ben's been with us before. He's the co-author of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Great Awakening. They've put together a course called Awakened Life, and they'll be offering Wake Up viewers a significant discount if you would care to find out more about it. We'll also be talking about, in comment, the hell of Medomsley. Medomsley was a detention centre for young boys, young men, and it's essentially how working class boys were tortured and abused by sadists in the system. And interestingly, and quite by chance, we have 3 stories from Canada: the horrendous ostrich culling that's taking place, Bills C8, C9 and more, actually. And a Canadian viewer emailed me about assisted dying and doesn't really like my take on it, which is fine, because we do believe in freedom of speech around here and also diversity of opinion. So I will be reading that later. And just to say, today's show is not monetized. You will not be interrupted by adverts, simply because of the nature of the content. So once again, I want you to know how much I appreciate you all. Yes, indeed, I do. Thank you for being here. We do news different around here, and I think you know why. Because someone had to. That someone is me. And I noted Curly Crew in the comments this morning. Good morning to you, Curly Crew, saying, can we look into the Tanzania female content creator facing death for dancing to an audio track using the leader of the country's voice? She's charged with treason. Yes, we can indeed. That will be for, I'll have a look, check that out for next week. And where to start? Where to start, people? Well, I think I'm going to start with a video. Seems the most appropriate place to start today. So the Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, will be announcing new immigration measures today. This will change the asylum system from one of permanence to temporary, or at least that's the idea. I'll be asking Warren Thornton his ideas on it shortly. But shall we have a listen to what the Home Secretary put out yesterday? Have a listen to this.
I will announce the most significant changes to our asylum system in modern times. Today, I want to tell you why. Across Europe, asylum claims are falling, but in Britain, they are rising. In the last 4 years, 400,000 people claimed asylum here. Over 100,000 are housed and supported at taxpayers' expense, putting huge pressure on local communities. The previous government had years to tackle this problem. Instead, they wasted time and £700 million on their Rwanda scheme, removing a sum total of 4 volunteers. This government has been rebuilding. We have record levels of immigration raids and arrests. we have prevented over 20,000 illegal channel crossings, and we have now returned nearly 50,000 illegal migrants. These were vital steps, but we must now go further. We need to reduce the numbers coming here illegally. We need to remove more people who have no right to be here. We will always be a country that gives sanctuary to those fleeing danger, but we must restore order and control.
That's a lot of words. I'm going to be looking forward very much to what Warren Thornton has to say about that. And I bet you he's got some things to say about it. Before we bring him in, I just want to comment on a couple more news stories. After receiving close to 3 million signatures, Parliament will debate do not introduce digital ID on December the 8th. I lolled at this. Are we allowed to say lol out loud? I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but I frankly think nothing will come of it. These parliamentary debates following a petition are nothing but a show to make people feel as if they are being heard. But this is way beyond the British Parliament. Digital ID is a global mission. And unless we get mass pushback against using digital ID, it will go ahead as planned. So sorry, and sadly, I have no faith in petitions. I haven't for a very long time. I see them having only one use, and that is to raise awareness of the issue. But as for making politicians change their minds about something they have little or no control over because they are not in charge, I'm concerned it might be a bit delusional. But there you go, December the 8th for a petition nonetheless. I remember their chemtrail debate. That was farcical too. And one of our viewers, Swiss Miss, asked us the other week about Canada's Bill C8. And I asked Claire Wills Harrison about it. She was with us the other week. And she came back with some stuff yesterday. And it got me digging even further. And actually, I realized that Canada is in a really precarious state. And we've seen this before. We saw this with the truck drivers. Canada is really totalitarian, very draconian in many respects. And Justin Trudeau, of course, was the former front man. This man is now former governor of the Bank of England, Mark Carney. And there are a number of bills to be concerned about indeed. And Swiss Miss was absolutely right. I've approached the Justice Centre in Canada, see if I can get a pre-record with them to discuss all of these bills. But a brief overview before I'm joined by Warren. First of all, Bill C8 is the Cyber Security Act. And essentially, the idea is to kick Canadians off the internet. And they can designate any company as an operator capable of imposing these rules. There will be no compensation to individuals or companies that suffer losses from this. There will be heavy penalties in the thousands and even going up to the millions for people who are seen to have transgressed these internet rules. And as John Carpe from the Justice Centre said, none of this is necessary for national security. He's a constitutional lawyer and had a great deal of very interesting things to say about this rash of bills that are coming through the Canadian Parliament at this moment in time. This is overreach. There's already laws for all of this. Then there's C9, which is apparently combating the Hate Crime Act. This will give judges authority to impose longer sentences if the judge feels that hate was part of the motivation. It's all about the subjective feelings again of police, prosecutors and judges. And it was very interesting listening to John Carpe because he said that Canada is in danger of going the way that England is going. We are seen around the world as really totalitarian when it comes to our freedom of speech. And you can see why over the last year and a half. You can absolutely see why, but there's more. There's Bill C63, and this is about the Online Harms Act in Canada. And people are protesting against it, saying, do not bring it back, because obviously they tried to bring it in and it failed, but they are threatening to bring it back. And the aim is to bring it back, bring it into law. It will govern, again, all the internet and content. And even worse than that, it actually allows for Canadians to be punished preemptively. So, for example, as one example, if their neighbours are concerned that they may be online radicals or extremists, they can the person can be punished before the act takes place. That's part of Canada's Online Harms Act. It's extraordinary stuff. and it's taking place. And what they're actually saying, what protesters and campaigners are saying is, could Canada be a police state by Christmas? Because all these bills are being pushed through right now. And concerned citizens say, yes, absolutely. Canada could become a police state by Christmas if Parliament passes bills. There is, of course, also the C2, the Strong Borders Act. And personal privacy will be deeply impacted as well. So, Swiss Miss, you were absolutely right to be alarmed, because whatever happens in one part of the world will almost certainly impact the rest of the Western world. We know that. But I want to do a fuller, deeper dive into this, because, and certainly Bills C8 and C9 are deeply, deeply concerning. There are multiple versions of Bill C8, but essentially it will cover cybersecurity. They say their aim is to strengthen cyber resilience by requiring critical infrastructure. You know what critical infrastructure is, right? All of this obviously linked to digital ID, which is fast approaching. And as for Bill C9, that is also deeply troubling, because you can be fined and imprisoned for displaying what they deem to be a hate or terrorist symbol in public. That's again subjective. Who is deciding what is a hate symbol? So really problematic. Thank you, Swiss Miss, for raising all this stuff up. And, you know, deeply concerning. Carney is a high priest in the real power structure, says Shug. And China rules them, says Dougie. And the thing is, China is that secret arm behind the curtain, isn't it? Pulling all manner of strings. But I can see why people are very concerned about this. And so hopefully next week I will get to be able to tackle that in more depth. But I don't want to waste another moment, and I want to bring in our friend, dear Warren Thornton. Here he is. Good morning, Warren Thornton. How are you, Poppet?
Good morning, Sonia. How are you?
I'm grand, thank you. Thank you for being here. How's the weather there?
It's a lot better than it was. I've got a little bit of a chill because I actually went out in the typhoon that we had to do some recordings of it. So got a little bit of it, shall we say, a little bit of a cold.
Take good care of yourself. But it's lovely to have you here with us. So much to get through. I mean, just so much to get through. So let's start. So first of all, I'd like your feedback on Shabana Mahmood's announcement today. Your thoughts? Do you think it's going to change what's happening in terms of migration, or is it just yet more theatre?
No, it's more theatre. It's a lot of hot air. And of course, what they haven't told you is while they're extending that period that it takes for people to be able to come to stay in the country. Of course, they'll be allowed to stay in the country while that's being processed. They've kept that very, very quiet. And of course, at the moment, Starmer's got more pressing problems because, of course, he's in trouble with a leadership challenge, which is very real, despite what people are saying. The thing I will say on that, Sonia, is David Lammy attended the Bilderberg Group in 2024. And of course, Wes Streeting did so this year. Just so happens that David Lammy is now shall we say, the deputy leader, and very much they would like Streeting to be the leader. And of course, Angela Rayner is just a stalking horse for that.
So that is very real what's taking place. So, but surely Starmer is carrying out all of the orders of the masters. What could he have done wrong in their eyes?
Well, very simply, he's run his course. It doesn't matter what you do with your masters. You look at how they threw Sunak under the bus once that had happened. Liz Truss was the wrong person. They didn't want Liz Truss in charge because she wasn't one of them. So Sunak was put in charge, and as soon as he'd outlived his usefulness, as I always say, Sonia, if you own all the horses in the race, you don't care which one wins.
Right, exactly. And let me just go back to the Bilderberg meeting, because there'll be some people who will be watching this who are not necessarily clued up about what the Bilderberg means or being in attendance at the Bilderberg. So what does it actually mean?
So the Bilderberg Group was a very powerful group of bankers and people from all around the world, globalists really, and it is the people who drive what is going on at the World Economic Forum, what happens in your banking sector and everything else. Started in 1954, and of course the people there are people like Henry Kissinger have been part of it, the Rothschilds and everything else. But you are invited to go to it if you're sort of one of the people of the moment. And very, very quickly, what they do is they get you to be part of that and carry out their agenda that they want doing.
I mean, it is fascinating stuff. We talk often around here about the power and influence of these groups. And there are so many, aren't there? There's a Trilateral
Yes.
Commission, there's a Bilderberg Group. It goes on and on. But WEF obviously is probably more famously known than many of the others. And also they operate on the Chatham House rules, don't they? Which obviously means that you can talk about what was discussed there, but you cannot accredit it to anybody, which honestly, Warren, I still think is outrageous because these are public servants attending. And they are attending on our behalf. We should know, shouldn't we, what they are individually saying?
Yes, absolutely. And of course, many, many decisions from, how can I put it, from vaccines to banking to wars, to who they're financing, to who they want to be next in line, what they're going to do. The Bilderberg Group was set up because they didn't trust the rest of the world to be in charge of the finances. So they wanted to make sure that they were the ones who controlled where the financial clout was being used or being spent, or what it was used to influence.
So do you think that Starmer is going to be ousted anytime soon?
He has to be. He's outlived his usefulness. He still hasn't explained about the 3 Ukrainian male models. He's completely compromised when it comes to either Big Pharma, the banks. He's perfectly at home at the World Economic Forum, and he's spent more time abroad than he has actually at home. And of course, he's linked to Ukraine for many, many moons to come. He's totally and utterly compromised. Not that the others are not, but he's just simply run his course. And they know, or they should know, that Labour are finished if he remains. Now, is it a case, do they replace him straight away? They have no choice, really, Sonia. If they don't replace him, they're going to get further and further behind reform. You've only got to look at the latest polls and see that the Greens have moved into second place. And there is a lot of Soros money and a lot of banking money behind the Greens now, which are going to try and take over as the next party to reform.
Got you. So from what I understand from that, the Shabana Mahmood announcement today is just the ETA. They're not telling us the whole picture, and Starmer will soon be ousted, and jollying into places Wes Streeting and David Lammy, 2 completely hopeless individuals. But what do we expect? So what do we make of what's going on across the Atlantic? What about this? The big fallout, big MAGA split, right? Marjorie Taylor Greene, who is standing up for victims of Jeffrey Epstein and demanding transparency and accountancy. And we have obviously President Donald Trump, who not so long ago was saying, are people still talking about that? There's nothing in it. It's a hoax, calling it a hoax. But now this week, there's going to be a big vote, right? The Epstein Files Transparency Act. And the aim of the bill is to make the Justice Department release all unclassified records. And didn't I see something about Donald Trump now saying release everything? Give me your take on it, Warren. What are your thoughts?
Well, it's political maneuvering, very simply. The Democrats threw Trump under the bus by saying, look, here, this is what Trump did. We've got emails. There is actually nothing that says he did anything wrong. But what we do know is that he lied a few times because obviously his friendship with Epstein was much bigger than people let on. And now he's using it to go after the Democrats. What they're not doing is giving us the full skinny on exactly everybody that was involved with Epstein. And of course, Massey and Marjorie Taylor Greene are calling for that. And of course, Trump is turning against his MAGA base by going after Marjorie Taylor Greene and not endorsing her. In fact, he's going to campaign against her at the next elections, and also Thomas Massey, where he actually made an idiotic tweet about Massey's new wife, saying that he'd obviously, got together with a loser. It is quite crazy that you would do that sort of thing, Sonia. And it just goes to show that they were shaken. If you saw any of Caroline Levitt's, shall we say, press conferences, you could see she was clearly shaken by the amount of stuff that was coming out. What we need to do is have total transparency. And of course, the victims need to be protected. But that's the only thing that should be redacted. Anything else should be out there. There's no doubt whatsoever that there's a lot of darkness and skullduggery behind this, and there is a lot more to see about this.
A huge amount more. And you're absolutely right there, Shaken, because yesterday the White House released a series of social media posts of Trump and Melania. I mean, talk about damage control. There's this so-called leak of these emails between Epstein and his brother, where there is some suggestion that there's some entanglement between potentially Trump and Bill Clinton. And following that, you get all of these tweets about Trump and Melania falling in love and everything. I mean, this is the biggest red flag I've seen in ages, that there is problems behind the scene, Warren. What do you think when you saw those tweets?
It reminded me of The Naked Gun when Leslie Nielsen's going, "Move on, nothing to see here." And
Yes.
of course, there's
Yes.
an absolute bit of barnstorm fire going on behind him. You know, and it is very much like that. There is no way that Trump can hide behind this. If he hides behind this, then of course he's finished. It's all over. Because he's already in trouble on Ukraine. He's already in trouble on Venezuela. He's already in trouble on Gaza. And this will be the final nail in his coffin. And the thing is, Sonia, whoever he is protecting, and there must be some protection here, because otherwise you would just release it. If you've nothing to worry about, release it all and let the chips fall where they may.
I mean, that is actually it, Warren, in a nutshell, right there. Is if they'd have released it at the beginning of the year when he got in again, it would probably be less hoo-ha, but it's the stalling, it's the demonizing. And also what I think now is whether Trump is innocent or guilty of the Epstein allegations, the one thing I know for sure is he has too many child abuse apologists who are part of his base. When you see like Megyn Kelly, for example, making a distinction between a 5-year-old and a 15-year-old being raped, we know there's a problem, right? We know there's a problem. These people are playing with semantics, aren't they?
Yeah, they absolutely are. When Megyn Kelly was on there, and of course we saw a committed Zionist sitting right next to her with a pendant nicely out there ready.
I'm looking at the picture right now. Right,
yeah,
got it.
Yeah, exactly that. And of course, it's nothing to see here. Move on. Epstein, okay, he was a little bit naughty. He liked 15-year-olds, 15, 16-year-olds. And when he finished trafficking them, because they were of age, he moved them on. As though that is some sort of defense for what was going on. And the fact that Megyn Kelly is doing this just goes to show you, just go and check out who she's sponsored by. And of course, all roads lead back to another country. And of course, many of these, and when you go and look at the Epstein book, the little black book, which we're going through it page by page and linking up the various people and everything else. You can see how many people from world banks and from certain countries, should we say, are heavily linked in almost every aspect here.
Talk to us a little bit about that black book and what you've discovered so far.
Yeah, well, we started going through the one that was admitted in evidence because, of course, there is the black book and there's the flight logs. Now, there's people out there saying there's another black book and everything else. But the only one we are interested in is the one that's been submitted in evidence. And you can actually go and see for yourself the names on this. And we've slowly been crawling through the names. And it takes an enormous amount of work to get through it. And, of course, we're talking about various, there are people from stars of TV, but there are many, many bankers, many very, very influential people in the world of finance, especially, that are linked to the black book. And literally none of these people have ever come out and nobody's talking about them. Everybody's talking about Clinton. Everybody's talking about Trump. Nobody's talking about the bankers, the movers and the shakers, and everybody else that is wrapped up in this. And especially Epstein's, shall we say, friendship with the former Israeli Prime Minister and the other links to Israel that are in that book.
It is interesting, isn't it? On a constant basis, though, we know that our attention is always being, look here, don't look there. And I think this is proving to be very much that way. Trump is now apparently vowing to bring down Clinton over the release of the Epstein files. Trump himself has now launched an investigation. And this is all driven by public interest, nothing else, because the people in Congress don't necessarily want this, do they? This is the public demanding this.
Yes, absolutely. Congress don't really want to see this because, of course, once they vote on it in the House, he can still block it. He does have a veto over that. But if you're going to have the truth on this, then it needs to all come out. We'll, as I say, Sonia, real journalists will keep digging and keep digging. People are using it for political points. Democrats to attack Trump, Trump to attack the Democrats. But what we're missing is the bigger overall picture. And everybody's saying it's like a magician. Look here, this is what we want to show you, while the real magic of making it disappear is over here.
I hear you. I'm going to play you a video. Tell me what you see here. You sent me this morning, and you know, one of those moments when you watch something, you get hairs standing up on the back of your neck. Well, that's what happened when you sent me this video. Check it out, everybody, and then Warren will explain what's going on here.
Сука. Нихуя не чую.
Открывается.
Ох, ебать.
That's horrendous, Warren. What's going on there, and where is it?
Now, that is in a place called Pokrovsk, which you may well have heard about. Now, that's obviously in the Donbass area, and that's the massive meltdown everybody's been having, because in Pokrovsk, and there's a city next to it called Minorad, it is a huge conurbation. Around about 250,000 people live there, so it is not the inconsequential place that everybody thinks it is. Now, slowly, the Russians surrounded it with drones, then they pounded the inner core, and then Zelensky was saying, there's nothing to see here, everything's absolutely fine, we're in full control of Pokrovsk. But Pokrovsk was disappearing day by day, and now they're literally, the Russians are on the edges of the pig farm. Minorad is completely encircled with over 1,000 men left in there, and that is a video that has come out from one of the guys who managed to escape along what we're calling the road of death, which leads out of Pokrovsk, which the Ukrainians had complete firepower over. And I said there were 2,000 drones along this E50 highway waiting to pick off anybody that comes. So what the Russians do is they encircle you on three sides. They don't waste their troops. Just ignore the Western propaganda about wasting their troops and costing them lots of people. What they do is they just keep pounding the city until the nerve breaks, or the Ukrainians try and break back in to the city to relieve the siege. And then, of course, that one road that's left open, they just pick them off, and the casualties are horrendous from the drones and the artillery that is covering that road. Then, when literally they've had enough, when they're starving, they either come out and surrender, then the Russians move in and clean up whatever little pockets of resistance are left. And this works all the time now. They've sort of got this shall we say, they've got this almost down cold, where they just do this. They make a surrounding. They allow the Ukrainians to keep doing the same stupid thing. And of course, they're egged on by the West. And Ukrainians are just dying for no good reason whatsoever. And there you saw a Ukrainian medic who was escaping Pokrovsk. And that is what it's like to be under this drone assault from the main road along the E50 highway in just outside of Pokrovsk.
Horrendous stuff. I thought Trump had finished this. Certainly that was what he's been beating his chest saying every time Zelensky rocks up at the White House. Is there no end in sight, Warren?
There isn't until they start listening to the Russians. So there are three things that the Russians started in the SMO. It was no Ukraine in NATO. Well, the Americans belatedly have agreed to that, even though Mark Rutte is turning around and saying, well, it's not forever, it's only for now. No, it's got to be forever. You're just not listening at all. Then it's got to be, the Ukrainian forces have got to be demilitarized down to an acceptable level that the Russians will be happy with. And of course, we have the, I will call it, because I don't want you to get into trouble, the denazification. Now, this is a major, major problem. There was even a vote in the UN yesterday about can we combat this? And of course, many of the European countries said, the Russians put forward a vote saying they are glorifying, can we stop glorifying this? This denazification, can we stop glorifying these people? And there were 50 countries voted against it, including the USA, including Ukraine. Israel had to vote with it, of course, because it wouldn't have looked right if they'd have voted against it. So this was a motion put forward. It was 112 against 51, but every European country voted against this. So there is a problem with this. America won't talk about it. Britain won't talk about it. And until you do, the Russians are going to have no truck whatsoever with any ceasefire. This war will carry on. Ukrainians will keep dying and Russians will keep taking territory.
Insane stuff. And briefly, why am I seeing this woman everywhere? Sydney Sweeney, a Hollywood actor. Why has she suddenly become so political? What's happening?
Well, we had an interview with GQ magazine, which is called Gentleman's Quarterly. Would you remember, if you would remember? Now, this was an interview that was set up to get her to apologise, basically, for her skin colour. Of course, she did this ad for Eagle Jeans, the American Eagle Jeans, which she said, I have good genes. Well, you know, and you can take that as in good genes that I'm wearing or good genes that I have. And of course, shall we say, the woke left jumped on this and said, oh, it's racist and everything else. But very, very simply, Halle Berry has good genes. You know, there are many, shall we say, white people like myself who don't have good genes. Sydney Sweeney, very lucky. And yourself, Sonia, very lucky to be blessed with good genes.
You have fabulous genes. Be quiet, man. She's probably had a ton of work anyway. But you know, as an aside, is she she's a MAGA person, right? Is that part of the issue?
Yeah, I mean, Trump came out and defended her and everything else because it became a bit of a race war with the left melting down and going, oh, this is racist, this, that, and the other. But Salma Hayek has done a jeans advert. Nobody said anything. Halle Berry's done a jeans advert. Very famously, Beyonce did a jeans advert which she put on a blonde wig. But the GQ reporter asked her if she wanted to apologise, if she wanted to address any situation. And very cleverly, Sonia, she turned around and said, when I've got something to say, you'll hear it.
Good on her. Absolutely ridiculous. And I say very briefly, but just before you leave, what has been happening with you on X, Warren? It's weird stuff. I can get you one day and I can't get you a next. What are they doing to your account?
Well, they've actually taken down and suspended the old account because we told the truth about Ukrainians fighting in Israel. So straight after we made that post, then obviously it got taken down. There is a massive Ukrainian presence. We are being told by our friends that there are literally people now still working for the CIA on X and taking accounts down. There's over 27 accounts that have been showing up everything that's been going on. And of course, those 27 of those accounts have all been taken down. So there is a massive presence trying to stop people talking about Israel or Ukraine on X. And of course, there is a massive Israel bot army as well, trying to take down pro-Palestinian people. So we have a new one, which is Warren T's show. And of course, there's nothing we can do about it. But we've gone on Getter and we're on WarrenThornton.com. So we're still up and running. But we had 20,000 followers and they literally axed the account. You couldn't, what's the word I'm looking for? You couldn't protest it. You couldn't ask for a review or anything else whatsoever. They just axed it. And we've tried to get all sorts of explanations. None are forthcoming.
Absolutely ridiculous. That's the home of free speech, y'all. Warren, it's absolutely wonderful to have you with us. You are, of course, and can be found at WarrenThornton.com. I always get this wrong. Is it 6 nights a week, Warren?
Six nights a week, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Monday to Friday, and then 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. on Sundays.
What a star he is. Absolutely lovely to have you with us, Warren. Take good care of yourself. Have a brilliant week. Warren Thornton, everybody. Take good care of yourself. Fabulous. Wonderful to have him with us as per. And thank goodness he survived that typhoon in the Philippines. Right. I want to, first of all, briefly just check in with the live stream, and then I shall go to my next guest. And thank you, Warren. Great as always, says Lisa. He's fabulous, isn't he? Cavan said, society hates the truth. It prefers head in sand scenario, and none more so actually than my next subject. So let's not wait another moment. Let's do it. We like Warren, says SMG. Yes, indeed we do. Let's bring in our guests. Dr. Naomi Murphy. Good morning to you, Naomi. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. Thank you for having us on.
Oh, absolute pleasure. And lovely Andy Woodward. Andy, you are, of course, a former professional footballer, and you are now the most tremendous of advocates for survivors of abuse. You're raising incredible awareness. Thank you both for being here today. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you, Sonia. It's an honour to be on with you, actually, and yeah, it's great.
Wonderful. Before we get cracking, shall we show your video, your promo video, so to give everybody an idea of what's going on this week? This video touches me so much. I actually feel quite weepy already when I first watch it, because it's brilliant. It's put together by Sane7, who is the photographer. The creative director is Dr. Marius Jansiukas. I think I've pronounced that correctly. And NAOMI is, of course, involved as a clinical and forensic psychologist. And Andy is one of the survivors involved. Let's have a little look at this. Check this out, peeps.
It takes men at least 20 years to speak up about what happened to them during childhood.
A vulnerable man is often looked down upon in our society.
We're taught from the earliest years, boys don't cry.
There's so many of us.
You're talking generations of men that have not been able to speak up.
1 in 3 victims of childhood sexual abuse are male.
Where are they all now?
If another man is listening to my story right now,
I want you to know you're not alone.
it wasn't your fault.
I was abused. This is why I'm here.
Nothing to be ashamed of. There's thousands of us.
Anybody can be a victim.
We have to stand up and speak.
Take control, whatever way suits you.
The crime is changing now. People are beginning to listen.
Trust me, don't live with it. Live without it. Just live.
Absolutely love that part, Andy. It's so profound, the idea of just live, because you and I know, I'm also a survivor myself, and you and I know how hard it is for many survivors to just live. So to end on that note was so profound. So let's talk about this. Absolutely amazing what you're doing. It is, of course, International Men's Day on, is it Wednesday? Yes, on Wednesday. And you've been working together on this. So NAOMI, take it away. Tell us about this campaign, please.
Well, we know that men struggle in silence often takes them, say, 20 years, sometimes longer, to speak up. I think it's not surprising that all the men involved in our campaign are men towards their middle ages, because men suffer in silence.
And Andy, you, of course, yesterday was a very kind of profound anniversary for you. What did it mark for you, Andy?
Yeah, it was a difficult day yesterday. It was 9 years to the day yesterday that I launched it with The Guardian and Danny Taylor. And those 9 years have been an absolute roller coaster. And just to put it in perspective, I didn't realize how big it would be to actually go global. I've been in every magazine in Europe. I was in the New York Times. I did everything. And I didn't realize, back then, the magnitude of what I was doing. But all I knew, and I look back at that Victoria, Derbyshire, and I'm like a little boy on there. And I can see the child within, the vulnerability I had. I didn't know what it was going to happen. But following that, what was impactful for me is that I went on a second roller coaster of trauma. And I understand that now. I thought that I'd dealt with all the childhood, but I hadn't. I was there ready to speak out, being brave, but that come at a huge cost, Sonia, a huge cost.
It's not easy, is it? And yours, I think, obviously, the reason I went global is because it involved Barry Bennell. Very famously abused a ton of boys, very sadly. I know several, and you were one of them. This was you as a young footballer. And when you said that you watched yourself back, and I'm paraphrasing you, but you were like a little boy, is because the problem about abuse when you're young is it gives you something of arrested development. It's like your life stops to a degree, isn't it?
It does, yeah. And you hold that burden, and what you do is you put a mask on and you learn behaviours and all that, Sonia. What I've realised and understand now, that stems from childhood relationships, and it can be parental, it can be a football coach, it can be Catholic church, it can be all arenas, army, boarding schools, and that's what this purpose is for, to collaborate together. I was on my own on that sofa, and it takes one person to speak out, and that was me. And then there was a barrage of people around the world that came out about men speaking out. And I've watched over the 9 years, and, you know, I don't want to go too much into it, but I watch everything about whistleblowers and what can happen to you. I'm here alive now, and I don't know how, but I'm here on this purpose. But through that, what happens is that you hold that burden in, and it's like it's from childhood. And there's so many mental health organizations that I've seen, and survivors, charities, and everything else, which is all great. And I've seen, you know, celebrities come up with mental health. You know, I created something that I gave to the FA, etc. And a year later, William and Harry were supporting it. They didn't want to support me, which is, I've accepted that, Sonia. I've had to accept it. I was silenced. I was put off I went to Brazil. Pele invited me to Brazil. That was probably a bad decision. I was just on this roller coaster of, I just wanted to help others. And I didn't want anything financially. I didn't take anything, but I paid a huge cost. I've not been able to work since then. Not been able to be employed. You know, I'm not saying that's anything, you know, I'm not, you know, violins out or anything like that. But my whole purpose was that. Unfortunately, I was cancelled. But that period of that has been an abundance of women coming forward, which is absolutely brilliant that they're speaking out. But the topic of men has not been talked about. It's about time that men, in balance and harmony, that men and women suffer. And the percentage of men is far higher than women that actually speak out.
Yes.
We have mental ill health, Sonia, in men and women, but more importantly, men, because generations of men have been told to stand up, be strong.
That's right. Stand up, be strong, stiff upper lip, all that stuff, all that dangerous, oppressive stuff. Naomi, you must know all about this. And so it's a series of films and the hidden scandal of British masculinity. And Andy touches on so much there that is absolutely vital, because it's all across the board, isn't it? It's boarding school abuse, it's military abuse that you're covering, it's church abuse, it's football abuse. It goes on and on. Naomi, how hard is it to get men to talk about these subjects?
Well, I think there's two issues. It is really, really hard for men to speak up. I think we socialise boys to view all social contact as desirable. There is some research that suggests that boys are more likely to be sexually abused by women, and society doesn't really seem ready to face the fact that women also can be sexual predators. But then obviously the rules of masculinity are about, you know, suffer in silence, be the protector, be the strong person. And I think with sexual abuse in particular, perpetrators make children feel ashamed of what's happened. They're told the abuse has to be kept secret, threatened that if they speak up, they'll be punished or sent away. And when you load that shame onto a child, they internalize that and start believing that they themselves are shameful. And it's so difficult for men to put their vulnerability out there. But the beautiful thing about this campaign is these 4 men are being brave enough to speak up. They're really trying to offer inspiration to other men to realise that if you're brave enough to speak up, you can overcome that shame and put that shame back where it belongs, which is with the perpetrator, not with the person who's suffering in silence.
And we should not underestimate the impact that this has, not on just the individual, but also on society, because people touched by abuse also often suffer addictions, suicide, homelessness, all of these things, Naomi. And we need to be able to tackle this, because once we start to tackle it properly, then we will improve our society. We seem to be doing everything backwards. How can we improve it? I mean, raising awareness is one of those things, right? What else?
Well, I think we also need to be prepared to consider that. So when we're asking questions, as you know, I came on your show previously and spoke about the 66% of men in the prison project that I worked in who had been sexually abused. And some of that, what that revealed is that actually men need to be asked questions about, or boys need to be asked questions about what's happened. We know that on the Child Protection Register that 42% of those who are on for sexual abuse are boys. So we need to be investing money into services for young people to make sure that they have the support that they need. We're talking about waste, big chunks of people's lives being extremely stressful, them potentially threatening themselves with addiction, suicidal behaviour, depression, anxiety, PTSD. There are physical health consequences of living with abuse and suffering in silence. What we want is for people to learn that they can speak up, reach out, and if you're close to a man, and you wonder whether that's happened to him, ask him, make it easier for him to tell that story.
Interesting comments we've got here. Rachel says, I encourage my boys to be open about their feelings. That has to be a starting point, doesn't it? And also SMG says that it's like essentially man up men. That's what you have to do. Andy, it takes so long for people to disclose. I've talked to so many survivors during my work, and I think one of the things that people struggle to understand, people who haven't been abused, they struggle to understand because they assume that if there's some sort of delay, then there must be some sort of deceit involved in talking about the abuse. But tell us a little bit about the process of coming to terms with what you yourself had experienced and how you realized you had to make that public.
Yeah, I mean, I think what it all stems back to, Sonia, is like I always say, I've spoke to homeless, I've spoke to people that have been in prison, I've spoke to addiction people, all walks of life in men and women, but more importantly, men, is that core starting point is some type of event happens as a child, and that all stems from a relationship. It could be parental, it could be sport, it could be church, it could be whatever, but that pretty much defines our path of life. And it's like myself, I've had 4 marriages broken down, I've had, alcohol addiction, I'll say it, I'm truthful, I've had bulimia, these are all catastrophic events that occur from that child. And me speaking out was more about being able to be free from. I went to the police in 1997. The culture was different then.
Right.
They were all high-fiving each other. Let's get a statement as soon as. I still to this day don't know what he was sentenced for with me. But the culture is changing, but It's not changing enough. The police have a responsibility. The victims, the length it takes in the criminal justice side of things. But we've still got to be able to speak and be free from that burden, whether it's a loved one, the closest. But trust is also a huge thing, because we've got to be able to trust those that we speak out to.
Yes.
And that's what this campaign is about as well, is that trust us, there's 4 of us here from all different arenas that are campaigning to get together and a collaboration. Because the thing is, Sonia, as well, is these organizations and charities that are out there are brilliant, but a lot of them tend to just hold it to themselves. This is about reaching out and collaborating together, because holistically, with the culture is that people are on social media, etc., then why can't we work together? Not about
Right. I know, I understand, but because I think NAOMI, I'd like your take on this. It is also because some of the people who have been abused have been raised in a culture where they've been pitted against each other in kind of like competitive environments, right? Do you see that playing out? Because Andy's just talking about how there is some sort of competition. Is that a factor in it?
Possibly. I think that does happen at times. I think fundamentally, though, there's so few resources for survivors that actually people have to justify their worth. They have to justify their, what their organisation is doing, because resources are so limited to access. So I think that must put pressure on people really to be a little bit more competitive than they might like to be ordinarily. But I think there are, there is lots of collaborative work done that's done very, very well. And when that does happen, I think we're all in a better place.
Andy, when Benno was sentenced, he was sentenced to 9 years in, I think, 1998. He admitted 23 charges of sexual offences against 6 boys, including yourself, aged 9 to 15. Did you feel a sense of relief, even though you've just said you're not entirely sure what to do with you that he was sentenced for. It just seems so opaque, as if you're not involved in any of the process, really.
Yeah, I mean, back then, like I said before, the culture was different. He got 9 years, and, you know, for us as a family, as you know, with my sister, you know, he married her. So he was away, he'd gone. And my 8-year-old nephew was able to be free from him. And that was my sole purpose then, to protect those closest to me. And it did lift a burden, but it also ended my football career, Sonia, because I ended up with panic attacks, panic disorder, what comes afterwards. And that is key to now, where we're at now in 2025, is that guidance and be able to protect the victims and make sure that the process is right. And as Naomi said there is great organizations out there. And this is why this is so important, because this is about us all collaborating together, because we can, as survivors, we know what that feeling's like. We can help others, you know. And what Naomi's saying there is that, you know, this is a cultural change, and this is what we want to do now, is highlight this for men. And don't be afraid. It's fear, you see. Fear is such a big key part of any abuse, sexually or otherwise.
Yeah, and it's used against you. And Naomi, I wonder how much fear of being like not believed, or shame, these are all have to be contributing factors, right, that make it difficult for men, again, in our culture of man up. Very difficult, isn't it? So it's a lot to unpack, isn't it?
Absolutely, yes. I mean, we know that with female survivors, it's, you know, there's lots of barriers to overcome in terms of that fear of being disbelieved, feelings of shame that the survivor is carrying. But also with men, I mean, there's been a great piece of research on the rape myths that men fear, that, you know, they're worried about being seen as sexual perpetrators. They're worried about questions about their, you know, feel quite emasculated quite often. So it becomes a little bit more complicated, I think, for men. It's never easy for a survivor to speak up, but I think there are additional burdens for men.
Andy and Naomi, I always like to leave a last word with my guests if I can, and certainly with you too. So Andy, what is it that you would like people absolutely to know about this campaign?
Well, for myself, it's a collective group of us, and we're here again with our voices. It matters. It's key at the moment with the recent, you know, Epstein and others that have come out, and accountability is a huge thing. I think institutes and organisations need to really take accountability and allow this to come through, allow it to be heard, allow it to filtrate through social media, you name it. But this is just the start of the journey, Sonia. And I've always, you know, my dream and my passion is to public speak, to inspire others. And I want to be able to go out there and, you know, with an arm of this, just me and others. But I want to be able to inspire others to say, look at me now, 9 years on.
Yes.
And this is important.
Yes.
This is important. And I'm an advocate of that. And I'm here to stay. And I'm here on a mission. And I'm here to inspire others to keep going. Every day's a new day. And we've got to keep moving forward.
I love that. Given everything that you've been through, I'm like you say, multiple marriages, and no shade there, by the way, because again, I come from what would quote unquote have been called a dysfunctional family. Again, same issues with relationships. I completely get it. I absolutely do. But it's so wonderful. It's like a new dawn for you. And I love that. And I can tell you, absolutely, you are already inspiring people, because when I put information on my Patreon yesterday that you were coming on, I received several emails from people saying that they had watched you over the years. They absolutely love what you're doing, and they are survivors, and to thank you personally for what you've already done for them. So it's tremendous stuff. I know what you're doing is makes it matters. It really matters. Naomi, over to you. What do you want people to know?
Yeah, just don't suffer in silence. Reach out. I think when people do speak out, they generally have a positive reaction to them speaking out. And also to draw attention to, Andy's been busy preparing a Substack, which will be ready for Wednesday, which will include resources to where people can also perhaps share a bit of their story if they want to reach out and connect with other people.
Let me read you some comments. You are an inspiration, Andy, says Mrs. Staffy. And hearts to you both from Marcuson, and wishing them the best with this campaign. It's greatly needed, said Reba. People know. And the thing is, you know what? When the time has come, there's nothing you can do to stop it. It's time to open up the floodgates. And Naomi, what you said is so absolutely true, is that society has to get to grips with the fact that females are abusers as well. And that's one of the things we have to overcome. But Andy and Naomi, thank you so much. Vape King says, excellent job. Keep it up, Andy. Just join us, all of them. Loads of great support for you in our chat, which I knew there would be. Listen, yeah.
Sonia, we can be put on the canvas numerous times, but like Rocky, we're survivors and we get back up, and that's me.
Absolutely.
I'm back up, fighting again.
Absolutely. Lovely to see it. Absolutely lovely to see it. And you're shining. I have to say you're shining. I'm a vibrational person. I pick up vibrations, and you're absolutely shining. And Naomi, you are a star for getting involved with this.
Naomi, you're a star.
Absolutely. Good luck. Lots of love from all of us. All the best. Take good care of yourself. Andy Woodward and Dr. Naomi Murphy. Lovely to have them both with us today. Take good care.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Pleasure. Absolute pleasure. Wonderful to have them. I have so much admiration for what both of our guests are doing, because it's not easy. It's not easy either from a survivor perspective or from a professional perspective. But that is some incredible stuff, and more power to their elbow. Interesting stuff, which I don't know what is actually happening with it at this moment in time, but I'm sure you are familiar with the Centre for Digital Hate. Thank you, everybody who sent me information over the weekends. But what's going on here? The Centre for Digital Hate, which was founded by Starmer's Chief of Staff, Morgan McSweeney, who is in a lot of trouble at this moment, and also run by Imran Ahmed. Now, the Centre for Countering Digital Hate has gone after alternative voices, I mean, very heavily over the last 5 years, attacked anybody who spoke out against C-19. And but now this is getting interesting. You see, the problem is, so the CCDH, that's what we'll call it, the Centre for Countering Digital Hate, they have a base in the UK and in America. And Trump's administration is less willing to put up with online censorship than Keir Starmer is. Now, for a number of reasons, and that is Trump is heavily funded by technocrats and Keir Starmer less so. But I don't actually care the reasoning why Trump is cracking down on the CCDH. Just that he is. You can completely disagree with somebody, but you can share an enemy. And I see CCDH as an enemy of our free speech. And it looks increasingly likely that Trump is going to deport the chief executive, Imran Ahmed, which would be fantastic, frankly. And this is really the latest example of the Trump administration showing their very serious concern over the crackdown of free speech online since the introduction of the Online Safety Act in the UK. And so they are striking back against it, which is great. There's been a slow stream of reports suggesting that this man will be deported. We will talk more about Morgan McSweeney another day, but it is interesting that he's involved in this. Yes, Kenneth, intriguingly interesting family background. Yes, indeed. Trump is still suing the BBC. And I mean, obviously, just to talk about that, obviously that was a story that we talked about last week, which is where BBC Panorama had stitched together two pieces of a Trump speech and made it look like Trump was supporting the Capitol riots, which is really egregious stuff. And then Trump kicked off. And again, I don't have to be a fan of Trump to say, yeah, more power to your elbow. Please go after the BBC. They need to be defunded. They need to be held to account. Absolutely disgusting stuff. But essentially, going back to this organization, the idea is that they've been persecuting Americans online for exercising their constitutional rights. And now it looks like in the US, at least, the tables are starting to turn. And that would be interesting. This is, of course, would be completely unprecedented action if he's deported and if they revoke the US visa of Imran Ahmed. And as I say, this is an individual who has targeted alternative voices over the last 4 or 5 years. And these people are always just kind of like the faces, obviously, faces on the can. If you buy into the stage show, says Humphrey, and Humphrey clearly does not. And I can dig that, Humphrey. No problem here. But I think that's going to be interesting to see how that develops, because if they do that, if they revoke his visa and if they deport him, then that will set a fantastic precedent. We need to do that. These people who are clamping down on our freedom of speech online are not our friends. Are definitely not our friends. Trump the hoodwinker. So you guys cynical today, right? Love you all, love you still. Right, what else to talk about before my next guest has arrived? I just want to briefly comment on one more thing. Yes, and that is just going back to what Naomi and Andy were talking about. We don't take violence against men seriously enough either. Certainly when it's been carried out by women. There are still women who believe that they can hit men and should not be struck back or face any consequences. And a perfect example of a two-tier world is the triumphant return of athlete Sha'Carri Richardson, who was arrested in August. Talked about this before, after she was caught on airport camera harassing, pushing and provoking her boyfriend Christian Coleman. She was arrested on July the 27th on a 4th-degree domestic violence offence for allegedly assaulting him. He refused to press any charges, but when I switched on YouTube over the weekend, she's in this big glossy advertising campaign. I just find it extraordinary. That would not happen the other way around. If a man is seen, brutally pushing and shoving a woman on CCTV, a public figure, he ain't getting some big glossy campaign. And this is part of the problem that Naomi and Andy are also dealing with, is that we apply different rules to the abuse and brutality of women than we do to the abuse and brutality of men. And it has to stop. And money talks, dirty cash. What's going on? Hate speech is anything the establishment don't like, said Stephen. Parliament in panto season all the time. Hi all. Hi. Who is the woman mentioned? What woman? Who are we talking about? Sha'Carri Richardson. I'm sure I've got a picture of her. If you haven't seen her before, let me just show you. I did snip a little picture. I think it might have disappeared. You know how it goes, peeps. But Sha'Carri Richardson, she's a 100-meter runner and a brilliant one at that. I was a major fan until I saw what a horrible bully she is. So there you go. Let me bring in my next guest. Let me just find him in my notes. There he is. And there he is. Here he is. Ben Hawkes. How are you, Ben?
I'm very well. Grand risings. How are you?
Grand risings to you, brother. Grand risings to you. Lovely to have you with us. You've been on with us before, and you've been on talking about your book that you have co-written with the man whose course you're about to launch or have launched. And you've also been on to talk about ley lines as well. You're a spiritual chappy, Ben. Is that your gig?
If anything is going to be my gig, I think it's just being a better human being and helping other people to be better human beings at this incredible time in our evolution. I was about to say global evolution, but can't say that, can't offend the flat earthers, but in the evolution of this realm, this planet, whatever you want to call it. I think that's probably my gig.
Feels amazing to be alive right now. Some people say to me, this is a horrible world, but I feel quite excited about our world, because I don't believe that everything is a given. I do believe that we have power. We see what happens when people come together in vast numbers. It can change things. Do you feel powerful? Do you feel empowered?
100%. I'm a spiritual being having a physical experience with a spark of the divine within me, which every human right now has. Well, actually, some of them don't. Maybe 4 to 8% of the population don't. I think we call those the baddies. But yeah, I feel very powerful. I don't feel powerful because other people aren't powerful. There is no hierarchy here. Everybody listening to this and watching this is as powerful as anybody else. They just have to remember. And one of the things to pick up on what you were saying earlier about this business with this awful 100-meter runner slapping her husband or whatever it was she did, and then being turned into some sort of hero.
Celebrity, yeah.
That's not a coincidence. What that is trying to put a divide between men and women, because the union between the warrior man and the creator female is incredibly important It is the building block of the family, which is the building block of this thing we call society. So none of this is a coincidence. We just have to have eyes to see and ears to hear, which is part of what we're trying to do, which is to educate, which means to lead out, which is a whole different thing than schooling. Men and women at this time, but mainly men, to be perfectly honest, because men are being infantilized, men are being defanged, men are being told they're evil, men are being told they're toxic. And we don't want to go down the Andrew, what's his name?
Andrew Tate, who tweeted yesterday that
unbelievable.
All women are scum. Says a man who's got various legal issues hanging over his head. But
well, again, we have to use our discernment, don't we? Because he is obviously a threat of some kind. But maybe, like the creators of the Matrix were told they had to be women, maybe Tate has been told to stay out of prison, that he has to hate women. I don't know, but we have to be discerning about this. But we believe passionately that men and women are basically where it's at. And what I mean by that is a relationship as a building block of the woman bringing out the spiritual within the man, and the man creating a space where women can create ultimately life. You know, what a thing.
So there will be people listening to this who are gay, who are same-sex attracted. How does that fit into your theory?
I have no idea.
Fair point. I mean, at least you're
making
honest.
this up as I go along.
Aren't we all, mate?
Yes.
And I love that response. I really love that response. So you have created this course, but you also came on before to talk about the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Great Awakening, which you wrote with your partner and Michael Dowling Fleet. And together you have created this course, the Awakened Coaching.
Awakened Life Foundation.
That's it. There you go. Awakened Life Foundations. I've got it. And you're saying it's for the newly awakened who are having a moment. What do you mean by that? Having what kind of moment?
Well, my moment came when I was in the queue to have my my new medicine back in actually January 2021, because I was working in a centre at the time that distributed this new medicine to old and vulnerable people. I think we all know what I'm talking about. I missed out on having my new medicine by dumb luck. And I walked out of there knowing that I had something to do, that I was saved for a purpose. And I don't mean that I'm special. As I say, we're all special. What I mean by that is I woke up that the whole thing was a bit of a lie. The world was an upside down place. Dark was light, light was dark, etc., etc. And it took me 2 years to come to terms with that. And it took a lot of depression, dark tea times of the soul, sleepless nights, etc., etc. I was a soldier. I loved serving my country. Then I realized what it was that I was serving. I still can't wear a poppy on Remembrance Sunday because I realized that it's an insult to our fallen men and women.
Right.
So what we're trying to do is to get people, to give people a resource and to give people some sort of leadership whereby they can do an end run around the negativity, the darkness, the denseness. Now, what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is we live in a frequency and energetic universe, and emotions and feelings have frequency. So most of us outside of, most normies live between 20 to 30 hertz, which is fear and shame, and 175 hertz, which is pride. And when you get to 175 hertz, you might be an influencer. You might be on The Only Way is Essex. You might be a success in the third dimensional material world. But in between, there's just this horrible bouncing fear and shame and courage and apathy and all these sorts of things that debt slavery and the media and social media and schooling are designed to keep us within. Now, the problem as we see it is that if you bust out of that and you realize that something's gone really wrong with this world, all you end up doing is bouncing around within the same frequency bracket.
Right.
20, 30 hertz shame or fear. I'm scared of the globalists. It'll never change. It's awful. Nothing will change. I gave my child this new medicine. I'm a terrible person. And then we get up to pride, which can be, I'm sorry to say this, I know what's going on. I can see through all the lies, mate. I walk around I use cash, mate. You never catch me voting. I'll never integrate into that. I'm doing a kind of David Icke impression of David Icke doing an impression of someone who's a very interesting character I won't go into. But what we get is people going out of the normie land into conspiracy land, as that awful human being on the BBC who runs that terrible podcast about conspiracy would say. God bless her. I've forgotten her name, but God bless her. But you go from one bad situation to another. and that's not going to change anything because we're a
I
world based
agree.
on.
It
I'm glad.
it is one extreme to another, isn't it? I always try and to do everything I can to see as many sides as possible, but I'm not doing the fake BBC idea where we should always have like 50% of each side of something, because some things are just the truth. There are genocides in this world. We must call them out. There are abusers in this world. We must call them out. It doesn't mean that they deserve a say in this. You see what I'm saying? So I
evil is evil.
Yeah, absolutely. So you sent me a code to let me have a look at the website, and I did. And it's over 5 weeks, but you can go back to it, can't you? And you know, and so just start to talk me through it. I will say, wake up, viewers, you lovely people. They are very kindly offering us for the next 5 days a 50% discount, which I will tell you about towards the end of our conversation. But just talk to me a bit more about it, Ben. Week 1, the launch pad. That's like, I gather that's quite a lot of the overview, isn't it, about what is taking place in the following week. So talk us through it. Launch pad. Week 2 is trigger. Week 3, Narradyme. Interesting. Week 4, the racket. Week 5, reality incorporated. So this is clearly a program of some sort, isn't it? Designed to get you from where to where?
It's designed to get you from what the fuck to I kind of get it.
Okay.
And there's another 2 courses in the pipe which go into the more spiritual elements of what we're going through. But it's designed to take you. So the main piece here is that Mike and I are reasonably competent men who can administer themselves in the quote unquote real world, the third dimension. We pay our mortgages, you know, we hold down jobs, we can hold conversations at the school gate and in the boardroom. We don't ever want to represent ourselves because we're not as spiritual gurus. I lose patience with spiritual gurus. They disappear up their own joss stick. They get together in Cambo circles at the weekend and they go back to life and nothing changes. This is about taking spirituality and good and proper living, i.e. living in love and loving your fellow men and women, because essentially you're sisters and brothers and sisters, and everybody is. And I don't want to get too woo-woo right now, but it's the truth.
No, I take your point. You're talking about taking a spiritual essence, but also grounding it in a reality, right? A productive
100%.
reality of actually doing something, as opposed to, as you say, just sitting around. And I know that stereotypes exist everywhere, but I encounter some people, honestly, who claim to be spiritual gurus, and they're just lazy buggers half the time, right?
Yes.
And I mean, and so I also have my own issues as well. So I absolutely take that point. And you also address that, don't you, in the Q&A, because obviously one of the first things is this a conspiracy theory course? And you say, no, it's a critical thinking course. So just expand on that a little bit.
Well, first of all, we've run out of conspiracy theories.
Yes, we have.
The vast majority have been proved to be true. Even last week, geoengineering, aka chemtrails, simply proven to be true because RFK says it is. And I'm not going to take things that RFK says as rote, but the conversation is happening now. Conspiracy theory is obviously a made-up term, made up by the CIA. Well, originally it was made up at the end of the American Civil War, but that's an entirely different story. But made up by the CIA essentially to suppress dissent and unfortunate conversations around unfortunate subjects. But what this is designed to do is give you a quick, so week 1 gives you a quick overview of the energetic nature of the universe. And the reason we go straight into that is because we get into some quite dark topics. The stuff we talk about war, which ultimately is an energy harvesting business. It's a financial business. It's a business of making epoch level changes happen in the world without much effort. And it's to kill people, obviously. We talk about religion, which ultimately is frequency warfare. Religion is there to suppress your energy, to get you to give your power away to someone. You, which is totally untrue, that there has to be an intermediary between you and the divine, whatever you call the divine. It's all the same thing.
I don't like that either. I agree.
Well, I have a mother whose life was ruined by the Catholic religion, who I'm desperately trying to rehabilitate, but people have to take their own path. We talk about education, which again is a brainwashing exercise. Education is there to create willing consumers who are happy to take their place in society. We talk about cultural Marxism, which is there to achieve all sorts of nefarious and dark effects. We talk about COVID-19 because it has to be talked about. We talk about the Great Awakening, which is ultimately what we're going through right now, which is a massive population level process of everybody realizing that everything is kind of fucked, but we're all perfect and we're all trying to walk each other home. So we go through everything, but we go through it with a bit of humor. We go through it with a reasonable level of knowledge that Mike and I have picked up over our journey. And the most important thing, we go through it in a positive way, because this is a positive time to be alive. We're about to go through what's worse than a recession? Well, that's a depression. What's worse than a depression? Well, that's an entire currency financial reset. And that's ultimately what we're about to go through in the next 2 years. You know, the science, the math doesn't lie on that one. And there is going to be chaos, but in amongst this chaos, there is going to be light. When is the night darkest? Before the dawn. That's where you are now. And our message is, if we take the time out to educate ourselves, to inspire ourselves, to realize what we want to do, to get clear, to get clarity, then we can all take advantage of this wonderful and chaotic time in our lives to come out better human beings, better fathers, better mothers, better brothers, better sisters, better sons, better daughters, better friends, better business people. There is so much opportunity to be had now. But we all need to take a breath and understand what we've been through, what we're truly capable of, and then we can slingshot into this new reality that we're building. And that, if anything, is what we're trying to do here.
One of my concerns always with these things, because I've seen how other people operate, and I'm not necessarily putting this on you, but I'm putting it to you so that you can have a chance to answer it, is oftentimes I have discovered there's been awful lot of fear mongering in order to get people on board. And that always concerns me. And if you can answer that without swearing for a third time, I would really appreciate it.
Oh, my apologies for that.
No, it's all right. We're adults around here and we're not monetized today anyway. But anyway, so the fear mongering always does concern me, because fear mongering is absolutely linked to making people part with money. So what's your position on that?
Well, let's get back to the derivation of the word. What does fear mean? Future events appearing real. Where does anxiety live? It lives in the future. We are not about depressing people. We are not making people anxious. The sad fact is, and if anyone knows Rob Moore, who's a very good influencer, a podcaster, commentator, and I'm learning from him about social media at the moment, and fear gets clicks.
It does. 100% horrible stuff. I mean, it's temporary though, because the people who are like buying in, who realize that that's a good marketing tool, they cannot last for any sustained period of time. I've seen loads of people come and go who's worked on this basis, because ultimately people realize that's all they're doing. They're just making people scared for monetary reasons. So sorry, do continue.
No, that's okay. And that's absolutely not what we're about. This is not for us. We have businesses. We know how to make money, currency, whatever you want to call it. This is not about that. Let me say it this way. I was in the military and I wasn't trained to do this, but I've got good friends who were. And back in the days of the Cold War, there were units whose job was to infiltrate into West Germany, sit in a hole and wait for the Soviet army to go over them, then get out and start malleting them. And that's ultimately what's happening here with me, with commentators like yourself, Sonia. Our job is simply to say the same thing, aka the truth, again and again and again, regardless of what's going on externally. And at some point, the world is going to catch up. So whether or not we get our click-throughs, whether or not we get our sales, whether or not we get our subscriptions right now does not matter. It matters that we're here. It matters that we're saying what we believe is the truth for good reasons, for reasons of the heart, and the world will catch up. So we don't want to use fear to get clicks, because we don't feel we need to use fear to get clicks. We're just going to tell the truth. We're going to do it in a way that's accessible. We're going to make information available in a way that won't depress people, won't make people scared. We'll give them a heart. We'll give them inspiration. We'll give them a want and a need to get up out of the trench and to fight. And fighting in this context doesn't mean you pick up arms. I abhor violence. I've been there. I've done that. I've seen what it's done to people. This is about frequency. This is about being a lighthouse. This is about describing your internal frequency in a way that will sing, in a way that will bring light and wonder and love to people. And that's what we're about. That's not going to get clicks. It's not going to get on the news, because they shove the good news stories in the last 2 to 3 minutes to the 10 o'clock news, don't they? That's why Esther Ranson God bless her. No, actually, I won't say that because I'll probably end up in court by the end of the day.
So she survived.
I was about to say something about Childline, but I probably won't.
No. We don't want any defamation around here. Don't worry. Right. So obviously you're offering Wake Up viewers a Wake Up 2025. That's the code, which will get viewers 50% off. I'll put the details in the description below. Let me read you some comments. Shug says they keep us divided because united we would overpower them easily. And that is the reality. And that's why I'm very much a kind of loner. I don't move in gangs. I'm really not part of, like, people invite me anywhere. You can ask them. For the most part, I decline just because I'm an unsociable sod. But actually, because I don't like moving with people in my business. I don't, because I think it compromises you, because I need to be free to, if I need to turn my vision on anybody at any moment in time, I need to know that we're not friends up, right? So,
fair enough.
You know, so that needs to take place. But I think that there is a movement out there that people still need some reassurances that they're not alone. I think waking up can be a really frightening experience for people. Actually, you used to be called the Wake Up Podcast, didn't you?
Indeed.
I remember when you first came on, right? So, but you've changed.
I graciously stepped aside for you.
Did you? Is that what you did?
No, that's not what I did. I thought that would give you a
sounded great. It sounded great. You should have stuck with that. Right. So obviously you've now called it the Awakened Life. And Stephen says fear-mongering so much in recent years from both MSM and social media. SMG says fear is the currency of this world. Faith, the currency of heaven. That's very poetic. What do you have to say to that?
Well, ultimately, we get to create heaven here. I mean, if you look into the Gnostic creation myths, which have come back into my YouTube feed recently, and there are no coincidences, and that includes the algorithm, sells us that we live in a synthetic bad copy of reality, made by a god which isn't the god. And I ascribe to that personally. That makes sense to me.
Right.
So in right now some version of reality which isn't particularly nice, where black is white, where good is bad, where we are told we're small when in actual fact we are huge, but we get to change that. We get to make heaven on earth. And Sonia, it doesn't matter whether you're social or not. It doesn't matter if you go out and engage with people or not, because it's about your frequency and what you do with it. And what you are doing is shining a light and connecting people. And that ultimately is your soul mission, and you're doing it very, very well. So you don't have to go on. I'm not talking to you now. I'm talking to really anybody who'll listen, which is my thing. You don't have to go on big demonstrations. You don't have to get together in groups. You just have to shine a light. If everybody today, with their first considered act of the day, inside or outside of their house, acted with love, then the world would change, and it would change right quick. So that's always the way. It's always about love. There is no such thing as dark. All there is the absence of light. There is no such thing as evil. All there is the absence of good. Cold doesn't exist. It's the absence of warmth. So we are just going to have to go around doing our thing every day with love. And if we do that, we don't even have to bring down whatever empire is sat upon us. It will simply become irrelevant. And that is the fight.
Thank you for joining us this morning, Ben Hawkes. Ben Hawkes, of course, is an author, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Great Awakening, co-author, and also the co-creator of the Awakened Life Foundations course. I will put details in the description below, plus the code. You can get 50% off if you should so desire. No pressure, people,
Indeed.
But if you should so desire. Ben, lovely to see you. Take good care of yourself. Have a beautiful week, everybody.
Thank
Ben
you,
Hawkes.
Sonia. Go well.
Lovely to have you. Thank you. Thank you. Wonderful. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. You people in the comments, you absolutely crack me up. Some cynical sods there. You people are such cynical sods, but you do crack me up. You still hasn't said 50% of how much discount. So it was $199, so it's about £150. So it'll probably be about 75 squid. There you go. So is there cold or just an absence of warm? Thank you, but no thank you to the course, says Vendetta. Well, I did tell Ben. I said to Ben before he came on, you'll have to. I think it's a good idea to offer at least a discount, because I can have some people in my live chat who are very cynical about these kind of courses. But I love you people. Vape King said, very good guest. At least Vape King is on the side, right? Daughter. I've no idea what's money. I'll give him. It's a no from me. Right. Okay. Let's move on. Let's move on, darling people. Any one of the most disturbing stories, I'm not going to go into it in great detail, but it's really weird. It's coming out of an Italian court at the moment. You must have heard of it. It's about these allegations that wealthy tourists paid significant sums of money to Bosnian Serb forces to shoot civilians. Have you heard that story? Did you hear that? And so what's happening is they are part of a Milan prosecution. There's also a US unnamed congresswoman who's also involved in this. Anybody heard about this? Anybody heard about this? No, you haven't. Right, good. Well, let me tell you a little bit about it. So it's kind of weird. And the idea is that tourists paid an equivalent of up to €100,000, which was around $116,000 at the time. And the aim was to shoot civilians from positions in the hill surrounding the city. Some sources claim that there was a special price list where children were the most expensive targets, followed by women and then men, while the elderly could allegedly be killed for free. It's absolute mad. The deer hunter, yes. And Woody, absolutely right. Rumors of it for years, right? So the first time I heard anything was around 2022, because there was a documentary, which was Sarajevo Safari, and it sort of rekindled the interest in the allegations. But there's now this court procedure that's taking place. Milan public prosecutors launched an investigation this month into Italian citizens who may be involved. And as I say, a US congresswoman has also launched an investigation to identify any potential American citizens involved. And what we're hearing is that some of the word is that some British forces who served in Sarajevo during the war have expressed skepticism about this idea, describing the allegations as an urban myth. But we shall see, because the allegations that Canada, Russia and the US spent between £70,000 to £88,000 sterling to take part in these manhunts has persisted for a long time. So while the Italian investigation is new, the rumours of foreigners engaging in these bloody murders in Sarajevo has been festering actually for more than a decade. It's happening in Gaza, says David. I hear you, mate. I hear you. But I just thought that was interesting that it's now part of a legal prosecution, and I wonder what will come from it. Talking about, I wonder what will come from it, is Vape King, you're actually in the US, are you? Good. Send my love to my second favorite country. I love America. I do love America. Right. I want to talk about this huge hoo-ha last week about the latest report into the Medomsley detention centre. The Medomsley detention centre was a prison for young male offenders in the village of Medomsley near Consett in Durham, England. And Medomsley detention centre existed from 1961 until the late 1980s. And what we received last week was a report from Adrian Usher, the Prisons and Probation Ombudsman for England and Wales, has compiled a significant 202-page report. Actually, let me just bring it up on the screen. And the report is about the conduct of staff at Medomsley from 1961 to 1987. More than 1,800 living former inmates reported sexual and physical abuse by staff. Police believe many of the staff belonged to a child sex abuse ring. 7 former officers were jailed for abusing detainees, receiving sentences totaling nearly 34 years. 2 were convicted of sexual offences in 1990, 2003 and 2005, while the other 5 were jailed for physical abuse in 2019. All of this is a drop in the ocean compared to what those boys went through. This was a sadistic home, absolutely sadistic. Medomsley was one of several youth prisons intended to separate youths from older criminals, and they had there Margaret Thatcher's short, sharp shock policy. Very sadistic and inhumane policy. And the policy was supposed to create an atmosphere, according to government, so unpleasant, and according to the report rather, so unpleasant that they would never want to return. And the policy was obscene, no doubt about it. Now, we are not talking about major criminals. These lads were locked up for petty crimes. Okay. And I speak as someone, I talked about this before. I have no shame in this whatsoever. I speak as someone who came from a family whose brother nicked lead off our school roof so we could all eat as a family. And I'm so proud of my brother. I'm so proud of my brother. Milford's nephew went to one of those. He was never the same again. And neither are a lot of people, those that survived, actually. And this man on the screen is Neville Husband. And he is now being described as possibly the most prolific sex offender in British history. Neville Husband was a former church minister, scout troop leader. He died in 2010. He's thought to have groomed and attacked hundreds of trainees in Medomsley's kitchens where he worked. And this was absolutely an attack on working class boys. As I say, they were convicted of minor crimes. Some of them were only there for like 6 to 8 weeks, and it was supposed to be, but they were tortured. They were tortured. They weren't just subject to physical abuse either. They were subject to sexual abuse. Men and boys aged 17 to 21. And the report states that it is almost likely from the moment that the doors opened to the doors closed, abuse was rife. And said that knowledge of abuse by the prison service, the police, the Home Office and other organisations of authority was ignored and dismissed, saying that wardens were complicit or incompetent. And I would tend to suggest they weren't incompetent at all. There's no way they could not know what was going on there. It was on an industrial scale to such a degree that staff referred to the boys abused by Neville Husband as husbands' wives. And it talks about how when one staff member used this phrase openly, Neville Husband beat him in front of a crowd of inmates and staff. This man was like, he was not in charge, but he was ruling it with an iron fist. And the reality is these people never abuse in one place, right? And the report finds that, says it's very likely that his offending did not begin and end at Medomsley and extended to his previous employment at Portland at Borstal. There were allegations of abuse from when he worked at HMP Franklin and Deerbolt Youth Custody Centre and during his church and amateur dramatic activity. Husband warned his victims that they would disappear if they reported him. And they also took advantage of the fact that Medomsley was in an isolated location and across many miles of bleak and barren moorland. And that would have compounded in the minds of the victims that escape was hopeless. As I say, reports were dismissed and victims were threatened with rearrest if they pursued their claims against Husband. The authorities threatened them with rearrest, right? So they were significantly discouraged from reporting what was taking place. And the report found that detainees and their families who did report physical and sexual abuse at Medomsley to Durham police were dismissed. And it was actually Durham police who threatened them with rearrest. So there's a lot of complicity. I suggest lots of shaking hands. On 2 occasions when reports were recorded, they were simply passed back to Medomsley to investigate, which led obviously to no consequences that we could see, but I'm sure consequences for those who were suspected of reporting. And Neville Husband retired from the prison service in 1990 and was awarded the Imperial Service Medal for meritorious duty. I hate these people. It is, Paddy, it's funny how it all comes out when they are dead. Although it did come out when he was alive. He was convicted, but it's never enough. He was actually arrested as part of Operation Voice in 1999, which was a Metropolitan Police-led UK-wide investigation into the distribution of child sexual abuse materials. Husband was arrested, charged, suspended from his ministerial duties in the church. However, the case was later dismissed at court and he was reinstated as a minister in June 2000. And then in 2002 and 2003, that's where more investigations and convictions finally followed. And husband was subsequently charged with 4 further offences in 2005, and his sentence after the initial 10 counts of indecent assault, and his sentence was extended to 10 years. So what will this report do? Not much. Not much, according to the Medomsley victim I know. Like other victims, he sees this as a continuation of the cover-up. And he's like all the other survivors, and that is, not only does he not necessarily want to put his name and face to what he said to me, because there is so much pain that accompanies this. These boys were taken from their homes for minor reasons and subject to such abuse and sadistic torture. It's almost impossible for anyone to describe. And what he said to me is, justice is not done until it's done. For these lads need to be released from their 40 years of pain, fighting those who hide from it. And part of the problem is people involved are still walking around. Nobody, certainly not any survivors I've met, can properly heal while those who are complicit are walking free. The whole focus and the media coverage has been about Neville Husband because it's easy, right? He was already convicted, that the public already know about him. He was charged, served time, and now he's dead. Done deal. Done deal. But it's not a done deal. And actually, what my contact has said, which is what many people say, is that this deserves a public inquiry. Now, not everything should be subject to a public inquiry just because people want it, because we simply don't have the resources to do that. But this should. Absolutely, this should. And this should go out to all of the kind of ball stalls and everything that has existed around that short, sharp shock treatment, because there's so much that we don't know. And my takeaway from the report when I read it was that this was just a cover up. And when I put that to the survivor, he said to me, sounds about right. What they're trying to do is stop a full public inquiry by calling it an investigation. This is the 4th investigation. And people are looking for a public inquiry that would look into the scale of state-sponsored violence against detainees, the missed opportunities to stop it, and its consequences for a generation of boys. And I don't necessarily plan these things to have any kind of synergy, but I think it's interesting that I'm covering this report today after we talked to NAOMI and Andy and the abuse boys have suffered, and that it's International Men's Day this week. But the reality is that this is to try and silence the voices that still demand justice, but it's not working. It's absolutely not working. As others have said, this is no different from any of the other investigations. It's essentially the police and Ministry of Justice investigating themselves. Okay. We've always needed a public inquiry, as people have said. We still do. And, people are still alive who have not been held to account. And it's outrageous stuff. As another survivor said, who was quoted in the press, I think this special investigation is a SOP. It's an investigation without any powers. There should have been some compulsion to give evidence instead of just saying, oh, come on and tell us what you know, because they just won't come. Absolutely. That is exactly what it needs. And that is also my issue about the pending grooming gang inquiries. It needs to be judge-led. It needs to have teeth. You need to be in a position where people are forced to attend. Although, having said that, the child abuse inquiry, which we funded to the tune of many millions, Prince Charles refused to turn up at that, even though his pedo mate was subject to the child abuse inquiry, and he sent a statement instead. So I'm not always entirely sure what the answer is, but what I do know is that there's still an awful lot of survivors of this horrendous treatment at Medomsley and other detention centres who need some justice. This was an attack on working class boys. That's what it was. That's what it was. Horrible stuff. Young working class boys who had barely done anything were treated to such inhumanity, such brutality, that Not to have a public inquiry is an insult to their memory. And it's an insult to the memory of those who didn't survive even to see this report. So that is what needs to take place. Yes, indeed, it does. Right. What else to talk to you about? A couple of things, actually, interestingly. Oops, no, that's not the right one. This is another perspective on assisted dying. Obviously, we've got the the end of life care bill going through, but it's really assisted suicide. And obviously, I've been very outspoken about it. And not all my viewers like that. And that's fair enough. Alysen in Canada wrote to me, and she is not happy with me describing Canada as a cesspool of killing the disabled when it comes to the subject of assisted dying. And she sent me a number of examples of people who she had met and who would opt for it, including her own sister. Alysen recalls, for example, a neighbour 30 years ago with mental health conditions who ended up taking her own life. She talked about suicide in the last year of her life to anyone who would listen. She was determined, said Alysen, no matter how many times her family and friends did intervention, she was determined to take her life. And then Alysen talks about meeting another young man in a cafe around the same time who told me in a very matter-of-fact way that his one sister had killed herself and he would do the same, and then he did. And Alysen then talks about how in the last 3 years, her own sister opted for assisted suicide when told she had incurable liver cancer. Alysen said her pain levels were intolerable and the amount of morphine required to ease the pain would kill her. And I think the point is Alysen wants me to kind of realize that there is another side. There are people who actually do want this made into law. And do you know what, Alysen? The thing is, I've always understood both sides of the argument. But my real concern is because I've talked before about how if I were to get into a situation where I had something that was terminal, would I really want to carry on existing? And chances are probably not. So I have always understood both sides of the argument. The problem is my concern over the type of people who are in charge of this, certainly in terms of British laws, and how they may start using it against the population who do not want assisted suicide. That's one of my issues with it. And because we know that the whole idea of, disgusting phrase that it is, the whole idea of useless eaters is still very much a thing. And that is, if people are unable to contribute to society, what's their worth? I don't think like that, obviously. But we know that people in positions of power do. And so that is my concern. But Alysen, you are entitled to your viewpoint. And I get it. I absolutely get it. And Alysen kind of ended on a bit of kind of tongue-in-cheek stuff, said, now, what we do have a cesspool of is the pronoun law in Canada. I hear you, Alysen. Thank you for writing in. I do always appreciate alternative viewpoints to my own, because I am absolutely aware that I am just one of many. One of many. Milford wouldn't want to go into hospital. Well, I've become very cynical about hospitals after the last 5 years. Devalues life, said Miss with a hiss. I understand that too. I absolutely understand that too. And Canada has been extremely busy at the moment. Anyone seen the horrendous mass culling of ostriches taking place under the guise of health and safety? Absolutely disgusting. Susan wrote in and said, hello, Sonia. I am wondering if you've seen about the ostrich culling. 300 of them in Canada. It has broken my heart. It seems these ostriches were being researched for antibodies and immunity, possibly against future viruses. Here is just one link. And Susan sent me details and I looked into it. And this is part of the 2025 Canadian ostrich culling controversy. And it's legal, it's political, it's a social dispute, and it's between Universal Ostrich Farm in Edgewood, British Columbia, and the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. And it's over an order to cull approximately 300 to 330 ostriches following the detection of influenza A virus subtype H5N1. You know it's baloney. We all do. The conflict is extraordinary. I watched a video with Katie Passitney, whose mother co-owns the ostrich farm, It was devastating. It was about how these ostriches were gunned down in the middle of the night. She talked about it, about how these ostriches were gunned down in the middle of the night by the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. You can see the pen that they rallied them into and just shot them point blank range. It's astonishing stuff. The farm didn't know that the gunning was going to start. They locked supporters out on the highway, and for hours all supporters could hear was these animals being gunned down in their kill pen at the hands of these hired hitmen. Animals, they said the animals had never been tested but had years and decades to live, and this is the start of waging a new war, unquestionably. And this also is about asking for accountability from the Canadian Food Inspection Agencies. And what was also awful was it got so dark when they were doing their shooting that they went away and came back in the morning to kill off the remaining dying animals. I can't even bear it. I need some water. Vanessa says it's disgusting and heartless. Accountability is absolutely needed here. And of course, it's Mark Carney, isn't it, who's also involved in this to a certain degree. And again, very interesting that all these things seem to be happening in Canada. Canada has been subject to so much totalitarianism over the last 5 years that it's at times on par with the UK and sometimes ahead of us. And it's just really awful. No animals should have had to have experienced that. No owners should have had to experience that. They are, without a shadow of a doubt, going after animals, in mass numbers. And it's interesting that US billionaire John Katis-Matidlis is calling for an investigation. And it's good when very wealthy people get involved. And it's very disappointing for the people involved that no politicians on any side were prepared to stand up and be counted on this. And, it's really bad stuff. This is one of the ostriches from the farm. Heartbreaking. And of course, whenever you hear about something like this mass culling going on in one part of the world, it will be coming to a field near you soon. Humphrey says, roll up for your fake meat, folks. The Canadian government is disgusting, Orwellian, totalitarian, and depraved, says Sean. Did RFK Jr. ask them not to do it, DJ Markison? That's interesting, but it's taken an American politician to do it. Nobody in Canada is prepared to do it. This is terrible. They suffocate chickens. Oh my God, don't. I'll be in tears. I'll be weeping and wailing here. I would like to get the people from the ostrich farm on to Wake Up to talk more about it. This is horrible stuff. Ian, I agree. Famine, starvation, control. Yes, Greg. The UK government did introduce the domestic chicken register, right? Yes, indeed. Evil acts. Why isn't it considered murder just because they're animals? Humans are so entitled. Marco, I could not agree more. Shug thinks they're going to do the same to us. What? Put us all in a pen and fire at us at close range. I sincerely hope not, Shug. This is terrible. This is absolutely terrible stuff. Awful, heartbreaking stuff. Yes, Swiss Miss. Awful. And Kay said, disgusting. They have no soul to be acting like that. Imagine being somebody with that gun. What a job, eh? What a job. And honestly, gaping gobs, I have to agree with you. This place is run by actual demons. Yeah, wicked people. Wicked people. And Susan, our viewer, was absolutely heartbroken, as indeed am I. Awful stuff. And as the farm owner said, these animals were gunned down by cowards and you ripped our hearts out and the people across the world. This ain't going away. This ain't going away. Awful, awful stuff. Let's reflect on something altogether nicer, right? And Colin, are you there in our chat? Colin, who's a regular chatter around here, sent in an image of him and his daughter. And it's his daughter Isabella's 23rd birthday. And apparently she's been in hospital all week with reoccurring women's problems, Colin said. And I know it has been miserable for her. She is an amazing human being and very musical, just like her dad. And I'm very proud of her. She is my world. Wonderful. Happy birthday, Isabella. Happy birthday. It's always wonderful, isn't it? Absolutely wonderful. Congratulations, Colin. Wonderful daughter. I'm sure she is. Beautiful stuff. Beautiful stuff. Happy birthday, Isabella, says Shug in the comments. Lovely photo, Stephen. Isn't it lovely? That is a lovely photo. We love that. We love a bit of love. And talking about a bit of love, you're welcome, Colin. No problem at all. Talking about a bit of love, this is an image of my love. And there's endless sodding fireworks that have been going on. And this is what my dog now does, right? This is her on one of her many beds. And there she is. She is listening to a YouTube which plays dog calming music. And that's what she's been doing. And there she is. That's how we can get her to calm down when all these fireworks just keep kicking off on a constant basis. We love a bit of love, Milford. We certainly do. Happy birthday, Isabella, says Cosmic. It is a lovely picture, short order cook. Absolutely. Yeah, it's my lovely bones. I love it. I'm sick of fireworks. You have no idea how sick of fireworks I am, Guy. Woo, I'm so sick of fireworks. Don't even get me started. That's my lovely bones. I love her so much. Yes, I do. I love her so much. And some viewer feedback. Good morning, John. John Simons wrote in, said, just listening to your interview regarding the moon landing. This is interesting. Have you given any thought to the possibility that JFK was killed because he was going to tell the world it is not possible to go to the moon? Just a theory I've had for a long time. I thought that was interesting. Actually. What if, because there could have been an assortment of reasons to get rid of JFK, and him being, somebody who may whistleblow on the fact that it was a fake moon landing, maybe one of the reasons as well. And the legend Daxter said, one of your best videos, Sonia. Thanks a million to you and to the awesome Massimo Masuko. And thank you for that. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because I can never tell with my viewers who's going to like what. All I can do is go with what I like and hope that you'll either like it. And if you don't, you'll tell me. We never went there, Buzz, says Ian. Yes, but not everybody agrees with that. Did you, Stephen? You listened to it again. And just to point that out, that I am doing those shorter clips. And some people go, I'm pretty sure I've seen this before. Yes, always look in the description because there'll be a link to the longer video. What else? And welcome all new subscribers, including Margaret Connery, new subscriber from Northern Ireland. Enjoy your content, Sonia. Thank you so much. I appreciate you very much indeed. Thank you, Robert. Your Khan video was excellent. Thank you, Robert. I appreciate that. That was Friday's show, of course, a deep dive into Sadiq Khan, Sir Sadiq Khan. Where are my manners? They work well, the shorter clips. They do soul sound. They do. How about deep dive into the Titanic passengers, says Humphrey. That's an interesting one. There's a few deep dives that I've got on the table, including somebody requested Isaac Cappy. Somebody requested, is it Avicii? I think it's Avicii. And the musician who was said to have taken his life. I watched the Netflix doc about that. A very sensitive soul. I think Swedish guy. A Buzz Aldrin quote that moon is not penetrable. She decides who gets out. Randy, who I only discovered the other week is a woman and not a man. All the time that Randy has been on the live chat. Why did I think you were a man, Randy? I have no idea. Right, people, thank you as ever to our wonderful, wonderful donators. I simply could not do this without you. I don't know if I remember to thank you on Friday, but this is a current list that I've picked up. David W., thank you so much. Noradine S., Cervantes Leroy, Alan Ford, End the Drug War Today, Ulrich C., Rosalind D. That's life, but not as we know it. And on the live chat today, as ever, thank you, Kath Hutton, thank you, Swiss Miss, and thank you, Paul Trainer. I appreciate each and every one of you. And I think John is in the chat. Thank you, Short Order Cook. I appreciate that. I give it my best shot. I think John is in the chat, and John responded to the email we got from Carl last week. Do you remember Carl last week, one of our viewers? He talked about that he was getting to the point of thinking, does any of it matter? Do I matter, in fact? And I did think more about it and more about what you were saying there. And let me just see if I can find John's letter, because John could very much relate to what Carl had said. And if I can just find you there, John, I've put it out of place. Here we go. Dear Sonia, your viewer's email from Carl that you read out at the end of Monday's show struck a chord with me. I find it hard to believe that I've lived through such times. Also, the fact that the majority of the public accepted the COVID psyop, be it through weakness or lack of discernment, the public's acceptance shocked me. Me too, bruv. Me too. And John said, my life was turned upside down, so I can certainly relate to Carl's email, as I'm sure can many of your viewers. You spoke of the staggering amount of taxpayers' money the government frittered away on fear-mongering advertising campaigns. And John sent me a typical propaganda poster and quite rightly said, we shouldn't forget these toxic adverts that were relentlessly forced into our conscience. And remember the mind warfare that was inflicted on us. That's John from Norwich. And I completely agree with you, John. We should never forget it. And neither should we accept people rewriting the rules of their role in it. Because I see, for example, that Reform are now spearheading this whole idea that because we are now hearing, of course, that the jibby jabby is problematic. And now the information about it that we've known forever is now coming out. And the reason I'm speaking in such puerile tone is because of the problems that are still inherent on YouTube in talking about it. But just to go back to that, about what John said, what Carl said, I thought more about it. And I thought about a song that has been around for years, frankly, but I still think it has relevance. And that is the Manic Street Preachers. And that is, if you tolerate this, your children will be next. And that is something that always kind of brings me back to it. And my child is grown, so my child won't necessarily be next, but other people's children might be next. And I care about everybody's children. And so I think it is really important, if you've got a voice, if you've got a platform, that you should speak out about any kind of injustices. And as people know about me, I have no biases, right? I don't care who you are. I don't care how big you are, how tall you are, what your ethnicity is, what your sex is. I don't care. If you are having a detrimental impact on our world, then I'm all over you if I can be. All over you. And it's because I believe that, one, we need to call out injustice whenever we find it. But that doesn't mean everybody is equipped to do it. And neither should people feel pressure to. I believe that we all have individual roles. Some people's roles works beautifully by supplying great information to people like me. That's great. But the other thing that made me think more about Carl's email happened this weekend. Have a look at this image, right? So I grabbed one of my cushions, and what it did was, when I looked at it, look at this, it left this incredible print. And that looked like a heart at the center of my hand in this. Stella says, Sonia is like a fiery honey badger. I don't know what that means, but sounds good to me. And I just thought that felt really symbolic, that we leave a print on this world. Cavan, behave yourself. Really, rock lover, New Zealand government killing Manuka honeybees for big pharma does not surprise me. But how cool is that? That was so cool. I was like, whoa, that's amazing. Actually, when you look closer at the image, it doesn't necessarily just look like a heart at the center of my palm, but actually looks like something is growing. It looks like it's a plant. And I love that. Thank you. I just thought it was just amazing. So I just wanted, again, if you're in any doubt whatsoever, why reminding yourself that you count matters, right? You can change the world. You can make a difference. I myself have changed as a consequence of a statement. One word can change somebody's mindset. It's incredible. And once you start to see that change and realize how relevant you are, how valuable you are, you will not only benefit yourself as an individual, like your mental health will improve, your physical health will improve, you will forge stronger connections, you will become more resilient, you will find a sense of purpose. But you have to remind yourself that you count. Because the thing is, our lives gain value oftentimes through compassion, through service, but these are not the only ways for our lives to gain value. And we often gain value when we realize that we matter and caring matters, you know. it benefits society humongously. And also, I don't know about you, but it's often been my experience that when somebody does an act of kindness, it creates a ripple effect, which is always so wonderful. And I understand that sometimes we can feel, jaded, as if we have nothing to offer. We can feel so drained because we are being hit on a constant basis by depleting information. And the necessity of Wake Up is such that although I'm aware that some of the information I'm bringing you is not great, I do it for awareness purposes, not to scare you. I try not ever to come in on shock or fear factors, because that helps nobody. That helps nobody. Mr. Baz said, everything matters in the eternal life journey. It's how we learn and grow. Absolutely. Lyra, the way that the alt media, I supported him. I supported Richard D. Hall a lot. I've covered extensively what has happened to him. But Lyra, I agree with you. I think, just as an aside, the alternative media absolutely betrayed Richard D. Hall. But that's an aside, and I just saw that in the comments, so I thought I would add to that. And so, yeah, you count, you matter. It is absolutely okay to feel drained and even jaded for periods of time. But if you can, get back on the horse, as they say. And also, don't forget, they want us to be removed from everything that makes us human: our empathy, our understanding, our compassion, our connections. And they do that by keeping us so busy, striving. But I want you to know that you are not alone, whether you're Carl, whether you're John, whether you're in the comments. Reality versus cognitive escapism. And Melon said, very positive vibes today. Love it. And yes, Miss with a hiss, knowledge is self-empowering. Absolutely. So I always like to end on a positive note to remind us that you are the all-powerful. Really, honestly, a change of mindset can change everything in an instant. Ashley is constantly on fight or flight mode. I want to give you a hug right now, Ashley. I know what that feels like. That is often a trauma response, my darling. I don't know what your life experience is, but when people are on a constant, I have to react mode, it's because it's a trauma response, because at some stage in their life, they sort of had to watch their backs. That often happens. Striving and thriving. Love leads to the bright side. Is that a Star Wars comment? Fear is the devil. He wants to destroy. I shall put my armor on every morning, says JB. Take back your power. It belongs to you. I love all that. These are all positive, wonderful words. And cults do indeed lack caring. Absolutely. Anyway, I'm going to leave you today, and I will leave on a quote, as I always do. This, of course, is all my wonderful patrons. Thank you so much for supporting me as ever. And the quote, I want dream. And don't feel negative, said Jennifer. Heads high. Love it. You're welcome, Peter. Absolutely. Love to you all. And so the quote I'm going to end on is a very simple one. And this is for anybody who's feeling kind of jaded by society and don't feel that they can go on. And the quote is really simple. It's a Sterling H.G. Wells quote. And it goes like this: if you fell down yesterday, stand up today. There you go. Much love to you all, and have a terrific week. You wonderful people in the comments, wherever you're watching Wake Up, I appreciate you so much. As I said at the start of the show, I had this moment yesterday where I was just like, I am so fortunate. And I never forget that. I never take for granted this incredible platform that I have been blessed with. Love and courage, everyone, says Miss with a hiss. Thank you, Gwyneth. Thank you, JB. And thank you all, and Sally and Del. And to you all, lots of love to you all. Thank you, Kath. Take good care of yourself, everybody. And Ian, great quote indeed. I will see you on Friday. And just to say very briefly about Friday, as you notice, I didn't cover the Madeleine McCann story last Friday, and that's simply because I'm still waiting for subject access requests, responses from the authorities. And when I've got it, you'll know it. Thank you, Marco. Love you all. Take good care of yourself. Aurora says, feed your soul, take your shoes off, bare feet on Mother Earth, and she will heal you. Hallelujah to that. Thank you all. Take good care of yourself. See you Friday.